Recently on this page, we ranked and explained every single Rasengan used by Naruto and Minato and Jiraiya, and that was honestly really fun to do, and the video itself did very well. But here's the thing, Naruto, Minato, Jiraiya, and Boruto aren't the only people who got a little redundant with their main jutsu. See, the Rasengan isn't the only technique we've ever seen multiple variations of. In fact, the natural enemy to the Rasengan as it stands in Naruto, the Chidori, is also very much a victim of this. But a willing victim, I would imagine, because these multiple different variations of the Chidori have been some of the most powerful techniques we've seen in the entirety of Naruto. And when you think about this, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if Naruto's adding things like magnet release and lava release and wind nature to his Rasengan, it would only stand to reason that the person across from him, his rival Sasuke, would do the same with his Chidori. But there is one major difference between the Rasengan and the Chidori when we're talking about evolution. While Naruto's evolution of the Rasengan usually resulted in him adding something to it, the Chidori, more often than not, isn't about adding things to it, it's about changing it. Changing the lightning release of the Chidori to fit into certain situations better suited for that different transformation. And I honestly think that's just the perfect encapsulation of the dichotomy between Naruto and Sasuke. Well, Naruto believes that the power of friendship or adding shadow clones to a battle will always result in a victory, meaning that Naruto's always trying to find different ways to pour more power into an ability or a situation. Sasuke isn't the kind of person who tries to force a situation, but change a situation to work for him. But here's the thing, Sasuke isn't the only person who redefined the Chidori. Obviously, the creator of the Chidori, Kakashi, also had a large hand in it. But at the same time, once again, this serves as the perfect dichotomy between Kakashi and maybe Jiraiya or even Minato, how these ninjas approach a problem differently from each other. And yet these variations of the Rasengan and the Chidori rise to the same level of power, encapsulating the true message of Naruto that there's no wrong way to get to your destination, as long as you get there. But enough about the undertones of Naruto and how the jutsu specific people use is representative of their personalities. We got rankings to do. So without further ado, I bring to you all 10 Chidori, ranked and explained. But before we get into ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And since we're gonna be talking about Sasuke today, guys, I don't know if all of you know this, but he's my least favorite character in anime. But I do have a current bet that says I have to get I love Sasuke tattooed onto my body. Now, I have to get this tattooed onto my body because my other channel, The Weeb Commander, hit 50,000 subscribers before the end of the year. However, there is a caveat in this bet that states that I can get it covered up unless we hit 75K. And The Weeb Commander is in danger of that not happening. But if you guys do want to see me get a tattoo of Sasuke that I can never get covered up, well, then I would highly recommend going and following my other page, The Weeb Commander, where we talk every single anime in existence. So the Chidori, a collapsed Rasengan created by Kakashi when he tried to add lightning nature to a Rasengan, called the 1000 Flapping Birds, the true assassin's tool, a technique only usable by those who have the Sharingan, because the tunnel vision created by using the Chidori makes you an open target for a counterattack. This technique has blown out more backs than Johnny Sins, but just because something starts powerful doesn't mean it can't be changed. Before we get to talking about every version of the Chidori, I do want to talk about the origins of the Chidori. Now, I've done a Chidori explained video that you can watch right here, but I'll quickly go over the history of the Chidori, what it was influenced by, why it was created, and why Kakashi's is referred to as a raikiri, not a Chidori. See, like I already stated, the Chidori was what happened when Kakashi failed to apply lightning nature to a Rasengan. However, in the process, Kakashi applied a massive amount of lightning release to his hand. And this lightning, as it went around Kakashi's hands, sounded like 1,000 birds crying out. Now, Chidori in Japanese actually means 1,000 birds. And the Chidori, like many things in Kishimoto's stories, is based off of Japanese lore. Specifically about a Japanese story about a famous samurai by the name of Tachibana Tosetsu. See, Tachibana owned a sword by the name of Chidori. And one day while it was raining, Tachibana took cover under a tree. But as he was resting there under the tree, a bolt of lightning came to strike him. But Tachibana unleashed his sword and cut the lightning in half. Now, within ancient Japanese lore, they said within every single lightning bolt, there was a lightning god. And Tachibana, upon slicing this lightning bolt, killed the lightning god within it, which saved Tachibana's life. And after surviving this lightning bolt, Tachibana renamed his sword from Chidori to raikiri, with raikiri directly translating from Japanese into English as lightning cutter. The reason that Kakashi's Chidori is referred to as a raikiri is because Kakashi once cut lightning in half with his Chidori, just like Tachibana. And thus, just like Tachibana, his Chidori was upgraded from a Chidori to a raikiri, though there's no practical difference between a Chidori and a raikiri. Now, whether or not you use a Chidori or a raikiri, there is massive setbacks. If you're unpracticed in the Chidori, having that much lightning chakra around your hand actually hurts your hand. And upon amassing all of that lightning chakra on their hand, the user lunges in a straight line at their target. Even though the technique is incredibly loud, it's said that this technique, because of its speed, is perfect for assassinations. However, because the users of Chidori move so quickly, they get tunnel vision. And the only way to counteract this tunnel vision is through the use of a Sharingan or possibly a Byakugan. And that's basically the SparkNotes version of everything you need to know about a Chidori. So let's get into ranking and explaining all of the Chidori, with obviously the regular old Chidori being in last place. But honestly, putting the Chidori in last place kind of feels like a stretch when you consider the fact that the first entry on this list is Chidori Senbon. Like, yes, is the Chidori Senbon technically an upgrade to the Chidori? Absolutely, but also any Senbon technique in Naruto is useless. But for the intents and purposes of today's video, the Chidori Senbon is to a small degree an upgrade. See, the Chidori Senbon is exactly what it sounds like. It's a Chidori lightning release technique where the shape of the Chidori is actually changed into hundreds of senbon. Senbon, by the way, are those little needles that Haku through. By using an influx of chakra, the user of Chidori Senbon can basically spawn infinite Chidori Senbon. Basically, it's up to how much chakra the user puts in. If the user is willing to dump a bunch of chakra into this technique, they can make a ton of these. And considering the fact that Chidori can only be used by those using a Sharingan or possibly a Byakugan, this technique gets a lot more deadly. That's because those who wield the dojutsu are able to aim these senbons more accurately than others. And in fact, it's actually shown in Naruto Bonds, the movie, which is non-canon, but we're gonna talk about it anyways, that Sasuke has gotten so precise with his Chidori Senbon that he can actually target people's Tenketsu points, which is the entire purpose of Gentle Fist. In essence, giving Sasuke the ability to use Gentle Fist, but at a distance through the medium of his Chidori Senbon. At the end of the day, they're electric needles. Any ninja above Jonin is probably gonna survive them hitting them. And thus, they are in last place. Coming in at number 9, we have a different shape transformation for the Chidori, the Chidori Katana. See, while the technical term for this ability is Sword of Kusanagi Chidori Katana, there's nothing that states that Sasuke has to use a Sword of Kusanagi to activate this technique. In order to pull off this technique, Sasuke funnels his Chidori into his sword, which makes his sword almost unblockable. See, adding lightning release to a weapon in Naruto increases the cutting power of said weapon, and in Sasuke's case, it allows him to cut through basically everything, steel included. On top of that, if hypothetically you are stabbed by this sword, the electricity will be funneled into your body and will make your muscles seize, meaning that essentially all Sasuke has to do is stab you with this weapon once, and then you'll be frozen and he can finish you off. This ability does have a weakness though. Lightning release can simply be countered by lightning release. Anything imbued with lightning release as well will be able to deflect this katana. A fantastic example of this are Killer Bee's swords. Killer Bee, just like Sasuke, is able to funnel lightning release into his blades, meaning that this Chidori Katana is really nothing all that special. After Chidori Katana though, we have Chidori Current. Now this is the first variation of the Chidori where we actually start to see real tangible improvements to the Chidori. Sasuke developed this technique while training with Orochimaru during the time skip. Instead of Chidori simply being a one direction straight line attack, Sasuke has altered it to make it omnidirectional, essentially by generating electricity in his hand and releasing the Chidori's electrical current in all directions. Sasuke is able to attack multiple enemies at once and also create a perfect defense. Essentially, this technique sees Sasuke covering around 5 meters around him in Chidori current. And should the Chidori current hit anybody, it will operate a lot like the Chidori Katana. The Chidori will be misinterpreted as a nerve signaling, causing the body of whoever it hits to stiffen up and fall over. By giving up the electrical current above him, Sasuke can simply channel the current through the ground and get it through people's feet. This operates more as an attack and less as a defense. Because let's say there's hypothetically 3 or 4 people coming from everywhere around Sasuke, if he activates Chidori current, he can knock all of them out all at once. However, if you're in the air or you can float or anything like that, if he channels it through the ground, it's not gonna affect you. Coming in at number 6, we have the first entry from the only person I want to talk about when talking about the Chidori, Kakashi, with lightning transmission. You guys remember the game Red Rover as a child? Where a bunch of people would line up with their arms together and you'd have to run through them? Wildly dangerous game. Can't believe they let us play it. Well, this is essentially the worst thing you would want to run through with Red Rover. See, lightning transmission is what happens when Kakashi creates a shadow clone, and both Kakashi and his shadow clone activate raikiri. Kakashi and his shadow clone then connect their raikiri through a lightning cord, and this lightning cord becomes the scariest clothesline in Naruto outside of double lariat. This lightning transmission transmission cord is able to basically cut anything. Like when we saw it cut through a tail beast's chakra arms. And considering the fact that a tail beast cloak is made out of some of the densest chakra in the entirety of Naruto, that is saying something. But here's the thing, this clothesline from hell doesn't have to cut. In fact, Kakashi can use this clothesline to restrain people. So not only does this have the ability to slice the strongest materials in the entirety of the show, it can also be used as one of the strongest binding techniques in the show. So yeah, I would say it's a feasible upgrade over the regular Chidori. Our next entry is also a raikiri transformation. And honestly, it's probably my favorite variation of the Chidori, just not the most powerful. See, coming in at number 6, we have lightning release, lightning beast tracking fang. What's cool about this technique is it's referred to as Raiju, which is actually the companion in Shinto lore of the lightning god Raijin. And it's usually depicted as a wolf made out of blue and white lightning, just like how it is in the manga and anime. This technique for Kakashi is an extension of his raikiri without him moving. Essentially, in order to pull off this technique, Kakashi has to manifest his raikiri. However, instead of lunging towards an opponent while standing still, he launches his raikiri in the shape of a wolf. And this wolf, since it's made of lightning release, is both incredibly fast and also very unpredictable. And just like with any other Chidori technique, upon it landing on an opponent, their body will seize up. So with the use of this technique, the user doesn't have to endanger themselves by getting close to an opponent. And since Kakashi is still attached to the wolf, he can freely control where it's going and what it's doing using a flow of chakra. This technique would allow Kakashi to do things like launching a raikiri around a corner. But wasn't good enough for Nagato. Staying in the same vein of Chidori, but from far away, the next entry on our list, number 5, is Chidori Sharp Spear. See, the original Chidori gained its power much in the same way that the Rasengan gained its power. The premise is essentially, look at all this power I have in my hands, now I have to get this power into you. For Chidori, this was usually accomplished with blinding speed. For Rasengan, this is usually accomplished using flying Raijin or a bunch of shadow clones. But the premise is the same for both jutsu. I got all this power in this hand, but you're all the way over there. Much in the same way that Naruto added wind transformation to the Rasengan to give it a long range option, which relied heavily on applying shape transformation to the Rasengan and making the Rasen Shuriken, Sasuke applied shape transformation to his Chidori. Except instead of a Rasen Shuriken, it created Chidori Sharp Spear. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Essentially, instead of Chidori just being a massive lightning release on one's hand, it's shaped into a spear or a sword. And this spear and or sword has been shown to be able to extend to about 5 meters. Since the way that a Chidori usually works with the tunnel vision and the straight line attacks, this significantly reduces the risk to the user. On top of that, since this technique is lightning after all, it's incredibly quick and therefore great for surprises. Especially if your name is Karine and you think you're about to be surprised with it missing you. On top of that, after you impale somebody's body, you can apply additional shape transformation to the spear. What's worse than one hole in your chest made of lightning? 7. Essentially, after piercing somebody, the user of Chidori Sharp Spear can make the spear burst out of their body in a bunch of different directions, which is like, 1 was good enough, dude. On top of being used as a spear though, this Chidori Sharp Spear can also be used as a sword, as the lightning release has a physical form and can be used for slashing attacks. On top of all of this, Sasuke can funnel this through his katana to increase the range of his katana. And while obviously this technique was strong enough to really surprise Karine and basically kill Danzo, after receiving the Sage of Six Paths chakra from Hagoromo, Sasuke was able to quite literally cut Madara's Jinchuriki body in half with this technique. And while obviously that wasn't enough to kill him, the fact that he was able to do that in the first place when Madara's body was only ever injured really by Night Guy says something about its cutting ability. Why worry about making the Chidori long or cut better or even be able to bind people or into a little wolf when you can just make it so big, which is what Sasuke did in the war arc, specifically in his battle against Naruto in the Valley of the End. See, in Sasuke's battle against Naruto in the Valley of the End, he used a full body Susanoo, except instead of wielding katana or a bow, he applied a Chidori to his left hand. Now, for all intents and purposes, you could say, well, that's just a regular Chidori, but it had a different name, aka Susanoo Chidori, and it's not just a regular Chidori because it's technically a jutsu on top of a jutsu. You have to create lightning release around a Susanoo. On top of that, who cares if you get tunnel vision? Your blind spot is protected by the world's most complete defense. So while yes, it is just Chidori but big, it's kind of different. I promise the top 3 are actually different from just standard Chidori. But let's not forget that Susanoo Chidori did quite literally go toe-to-toe with a tailed beast bomb, so it's at least comparable to a tailed beast bomb from Kurama. But in Kurama's defense, it was only half of Kurama. All right, let's talk about the top 3. Now, I know that I said that the majority of these different Chidoris are just Chidori with shape transformations, but the top 3 don't adhere to that rule, which I guess is ironic, but also kind of points at the fact that Naruto might have been right about how to gain true power. Regardless, coming in at number 3, we have the Blaze Release Chidori. See, obviously Sasuke pulls out all of the stops in his battle in the Valley of the End against Naruto. We see things like Chidori Susanoo and Indra's arrow. But one of the more impressive things that Sasuke pulls off in his battle against Naruto in the Valley of the End is the last move he uses. See, when Naruto and Sasuke are down to the last ounces of their chakra, both severely bloodied and injured from the battle, we get our final clash between Chidori and Rasengan, something we've seen numerous times throughout the duration of Naruto. However, there's something special about this version of Sasuke's Chidori. It's not just your standard Chidori, it's not even an Onyx Chidori. It's his Chidori mixed with his blaze release Kagutsuchi. See, in Sasuke's two eyes, he has Amaterasu, which allows him to emit black flames, and Kagutsuchi, which allows him to control the shape and form of said black flames. So instead of applying those black flames to something like a shuriken or a blade, Sasuke has applied it to his Chidori, implying that anybody hit by this Chidori will have Amaterasu planted onto them. And since he's adding this to the Chidori and that we know that he can change the shape of the Chidori, there's really no reason to assume that he couldn't apply Kagutsuchi to any versions of Chidori, since adding something in a shape transformation are two inherently different practices. Now, obviously, this technique was strong enough to counter Naruto's last Rasengan and blow off his in Naruto's arms. But the sheer applicability and versatility of this technique, and the fact that you only need to hit somebody in the leg or the arm to light them on fire forever, is insane. Not quite as insane as our second entry on the list, however. Our second entry on the list is the Dark Chidori, also known as the Onyx Chidori. This is the Chidori that Sasuke gains access to after receiving the Sage of Six Paths chakra. The reason this Chidori is referred to as the Dark or the Onyx Chidori is because it's significantly darker than his regular Chidori. In essence, this Chidori is a Sage Mode Chidori, as Sasuke is using the chakra of the Sage of Six Paths in order to create a Senjutsu Chidori. Because the Chidori is inherently Senjutsu, it's able to injure the Ten Tails and the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, who are only really vulnerable to Senjutsu, much in the same way that Naruto had to use his Sage Mode in the war to fight against Obito and Madara and the Ten Tails itself. This is because the Ten Tails and any Ten Tails Jinchuriki has all 7 chakra releases, the 5 elemental and yin and yang, but Senjutsu doesn't fall into that category. And then when you consider the fact that this isn't Snake or Toad Sage Chakra, it's Sage of Six Paths Sage Chakra, obviously this is gonna be real high on the list. With this upgrade to his Chidori, Sasuke was able to fight on par with both Obito and Madara and the Ten Tails. And while obviously it doesn't have the instant kill ability of Kagutsuchi, the fact that it was able to injure some of the strongest people in Naruto's history says a lot about its strength. By the way, while we're sitting here talking about Onyx Chidori, I feel as though I should mention the Flapping Chidori. This is a Chidori used by Sasuke after he enters his version 2 state of his curse mark, which has also been referred to as the Black Chidori. These two things are different. The curse mark version of the Chidori is also obviously black. It's powerful and it makes a different sound. It's essentially just a Chidori, but a little bit stronger, and also possibly a little bit Sage Mode as well, because the curse mark is inherently tied into Senjutsu. It's Orochimaru using his Senjutsu prowess to feed to other people. This could explain why these two Chidori look so similar, though, as any Chidori that we've seen with Sage Jutsu added to it becomes black or dark or onyx. So while these two Chidori might technically be similar, they're very much different. So I know what you're saying. You're saying,
Nick, you just said that a Sage of Six Path powered Chidori is not the strongest version?
You're right. I absolutely did. That's because you honestly think me, of all people, would give the top spot on this Chidori list to Sasuke? He wasn't even the one who made it. His Chidori is just that, a Chidori. It's not even a raikiri. You think I would give the strongest version of Kakashi's jutsu to Sasuke? I don't care what the old man in the sky says. No, because the strongest version of the Chidori ever is used by Kakashi, specifically when he uses Kamui Raikiri. See, Kakashi, after receiving Six Paths powers from Obito, obviously awoke to his DMS state. And upon awakening to this DMS state, Kakashi was able to fully maximize the Kamui abilities, being able to teleport things outside of him into the Kamui dimension and parts of his own body into the Kamui dimension, meaning that Kakashi had the intangibility of Obito and the ability to warp things into the Kamui dimension that he had always had. His Kamui Raikiri, however, capitalized on both of these techniques. See, anything hit by the Kamui Raikiri is instantly transported to the Kamui dimension. And while using the Kamui Raikiri, Kakashi is also using the intangibility of Obito, which means that any counterattack that would come against a raikiri would be dodged. In essence, this is the perfect form of Chidori. A guaranteed one-hit kill, because if you get sent to the Kamui dimension, believe it or not, you're not surviving there, and a built-in defense outside of a Sharingan. And here's the thing, Kakashi can just attack you in a straight line. He doesn't have to beat around the bush. Any counterattack you throw at him to keep him away from you will simply phase through him, meaning that this Kamui raikiri is almost a guaranteed hit. Therefore, it seems inarguable to me that this technique is anything but the strongest Chidori ever created. But what do you guys think? What's the strongest Chidori ever used? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell.
Oh, Nick, you have bias.
Do I? Or do I just have really good evidence and a knowledge of the show that surpasses your own?